All right, I am recording. Hello, Acquia. It's Manifesto here from London. You are seeing both mine and Jim's living rooms here. We wanted to answer your questions around our response to COVID-19 with a bit of a quirky interview between myself and Jim. So I'll start, considering I'm first talking. My name's Hugh. I'm business director at Manifesto. I've been looking after the partnership that we have with you guys for the last 5 years. I also support a new business. Straight over to you, Jim. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Jim Bowes. I'm the CEO of Manifesto. I've worked with Hugh for a very long time now.
Too long?
And not, of course, not too long, Hugh. So I started Manifesto about 8 years ago. We're an agency that focuses on transforming the organizations in the not-for-profit sector, who've obviously been hugely affected by COVID-19. I'm also a trustee at Acquia UK and the British Lung Foundation, and I present a podcast called Alexa Stop, which is about how technology is changing people's lives. And that's deeply pertinent at the moment.
I mean, it is a great podcast. So I think that's an excellent opportunity for you to push that out, Jim, if anyone hasn't heard of it. But no, straight on to the questions that you've asked us. So I guess it's the question on everyone's lips, isn't it? What's happening in the world, and how is this having an impact on business? How is this having an impact on our lives? The question that we've been asked to answer directly is, where are you, or where are we seeing the biggest impact of COVID-19 on our business?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I think, firstly, we had a little bit of visibility of something happening in advance, and I think different businesses responded in different ways. I'd say that Manifesto was relatively early in moving its team to home working. So we told the team we were doing 2 trial days, which were towards the end of the second week of March, I think that was. Then with the rapidly changing situation, we decided to just keep everybody remote, and we used most of the following week to get better equipment to people in their homes and make sure that everyone was working really effectively from home. For me, the biggest change in the business is that we're doing an awful lot of video calls. So this Zoom situation that we're in right now, Hugh, has become very familiar. This is, I think, the seventh conversation I've been in today, and it's not the end of the day yet when we're recording this. We've also gone into a different mode of analysing and running the business. So start the day every day at 9 a.m. with a business continuity call that looks at what's happening with people in the business in terms of their wellness, the work that they've got to do, what's happening with projects, what's happening with clients, what are the issues that are coming out of this, and we're monitoring incredibly closely what's going on in all of our clients.
Yeah, and I suppose I'd just very quickly echo that in the video call switch, one would think you would have a lot more opportunity to be productive, but I'm finding personally that it's creating a lot more noise. So the use of things like Slack, the use of instant messaging, Hangouts, Zoom calls, it does seem to be adding a little bit of weight in terms of the things that are going on and the amount of time that people expect that they can get in contact with you, and I suppose it is a little bit draining. Coming back to that that Zoom piece, it's quite an interesting one. We've tried to liven it up a little bit, and we've had 3 or 4 consistent meetings that are booked in on a weekly basis, just to make sure that the team are constantly checking in and getting in touch. And we've been having a lot of fun with some snap backgrounds and some virtual backgrounds off the back of the settings that you can change in Zoom. And here's one that I made earlier that I'll just very quickly switch to. But anyway, moving on to the next question. Number 2, what are you hearing from your clients and the biggest challenges related to COVID-19?
I think the biggest thing about this is that Manifesto focuses on the not-for-profit sector. Lots of our client base is in that sector, and organizations are being massively affected by a reduction in income. So for our clients, a lot of their income comes from fundraising events. Most of those events have been cancelled. Also, lots of their income comes from retail. So you're seeing in the sector, if there's an organization that relies heavily on community fundraising or money from the London Marathon, and they have a network of shops, there's drops of income as high as 40-50% in some of those organizations at the moment. And actually, there's even drops in things like legacies because legal processes are taking longer. The property market has ground to a halt. So it's really very serious. We're recording this on the day after the government announced some support for not-for-profit organisations, around about £750 million, half of that from the government, half of it from the National Lottery. But the sector really thinks that the shortfall is about 4 billion. And in this situation where they're getting less income, many organisations, for example, like Acquia UK and British Lung Foundation, where I'm a trustee, are also getting a massive jump in increase in requests for their services because people with asthma or people with lung conditions want to know what they should be doing during the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, it's interesting. That whole self-serve piece is becoming so much more important, isn't it? I suppose that takes us quite nicely on to question 3. So what recommendations or advice do you have for brands around how they can leverage digital experiences to both retain and maybe even strengthen their digital and their brand relevancy right now?
I think one of the things that's really interesting is that in times of uncertainty, people have a tendency to stick to what they know. So, whilst I think it makes sense to try and be opportunist in the digital experiences you're creating, and to see if you can find new markets, what you really should be doing is looking after your existing customers exceptionally well. And if you can use your digital experiences to do that, then that's a good thing. I would say that there are plenty of people doing well out of this. I'm involved in a dance fitness business called Glow. All of the gyms have been closed that we normally run our classes in, but our newly launched online timetable is actually being incredibly successful, and we're managing to support a number of freelance teachers as well, directly get income from donations from people participating in their classes. So we've been able to pivot the business and support our ecosystem, and we've used our digital experience to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, and so I suppose I'd almost echo that. I'm finding it absolutely fascinating to watch how society is evolving quite quickly, really, to a very new and misunderstood world. I've avoided using the word unprecedented because I feel like it's been blasted into my ears nonstop for the last 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, absolutely. I think how we evolve digitally, how we communicate with our audiences in different ways, but retaining, as you said, those important relationships we have with our existing customers is key. So yeah, let's see how it goes. And then on to final question, Jim. So how are you seeing any of your clients utilizing digital experiences to help them stay up and running during this pandemic? So if we've got any examples, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I think there's lots of the charities that we work with give advice directly on their websites, and so whether that's Parkinson's UK, whether that's Alzheimer's Society, the digital experience as a channel is absolutely critically important to delivering information, advice, and reassurance to people at this time. So I think we can see digital experiences across completely different categories, from entertainment to advice to fitness, all playing their role in being really critical. And we're seeing digital products and services launched at breakneck speed. There's talk of whether the government's going to be bringing out some apps. I know that Asthma UK and British Lung Foundation have brought out a website called post-covid.org.uk, which is speaking to people who've had COVID-19 and then have been into intensive care and come out the other side of it, and what additional support they may need ongoing. So I think, people always get most creative when they're in really challenging circumstances, and what I'm seeing is huge amounts of innovation and people fighting for their livelihoods, people fighting to help others, people fighting to try and make the lockdown just a little bit more enjoyable along the way. And I think that says a lot about humanity and society in a good way.
Yeah, I've definitely seen more remote fun tools, organized fun coming out in the last few weeks than I guess I've ever seen really digitally. But it is a fascinating time, and I think I should probably just touch a little bit on some of the things that I'm quite excited to see as well. So from a partnerships perspective, a couple of our partners, and most notably actually Acquia, have announced some opportunities to support initiatives that are helping with the coronavirus crisis by way of offering some services. And I think in particular, the Acquia ecosystem of products is particularly interesting to me. And I think we would love to identify an opportunity to create a product in partnership with the rest of the group of agencies that we're a part of called the Panoply, to see whether we might be able to create something making use of perhaps Mautic and Lyft and the Acquia cloud to really accelerate that help that we can provide to the community. So let's watch this space, see how it evolves. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Jim, or are we good to wrap up?
I think we can wrap it up, but I think we just, need to, remain as positive as we can in these times, and look at how we can use the skills and knowledge we have to help people as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your time. It's very kind of you. And I mean,
Thank you,
I just wanted to get that in because actually one of my favorite things about this horrible crisis actually is that it's making people be a lot kinder to each other, and I've definitely noticed that internally. I've definitely noticed that with some clients, and I love that that theme is becoming a thing. You know, it's bringing humanity forward, and I thought that might be quite a nice way to wrap up this conversation.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Jim,
Cheers.
and yeah.